So now we've got the gun apart and we've got it in this state. So if you want to remove the sear or change the sear, I'd advise using slave pins. There is a sear spring under here that you need to get in the right orientation. Won't do that at this point in time, but for a field strip, this is good enough. What I'm going to do now is show you the way that I actually put this back together. So here we have the sear and the hammer. The first pin we're going to have to put back in is the larger diameter. So you have two pins. Small diameter is the mainspring retaining pin, and the fatter diameter is the hammer pivot pin. So you take the fatter diameter hammer pivot pin, and what we're going to do is here we've got to align this hole for the pin to go through. In the frame. But first of all, we've got to have the sear down. So the way I do this is I put the pin in the vise. I'll show you this in a moment, but I get the hammer and I push the sear down, and while looking through those holes, and I'm looking for the hammer hole to line up. I can't actually show you that too well, but yes, you can see that it's lined up, and then you can see it's not. So by pushing it in, we can line the holes up. So what I do is I do that, but I put the fat pin in the vise. It's only loosely in rubber jaws, so I could waggle that out if I wanted to, but what I now do is I do exactly that operation, looking down through the hole, and what I'm going to do is present that over that pin. So once I've got that hole lined up, which it is, I push it down over the pin that's in the vise, so that's now flat. Just release the vise, and now my pin's in place. Just tap it through so it's flush both sides. That hammer's now in place, and you can test it that it locks back, which it will. There's no pressure underneath it, so it's not going to automatically flip back. So again, as I mentioned before, you trip the sear here, you rod out the way of the hammer itself, so just on the edge of the sear, trip the sear, and now we're like this. Now the fun part is getting the mainspring back in, because there's a lot of pressure, and this pin through. So what I'm going to do is put the hammer again in the vise, and again it's only the tip of the hammer, and what's just happened is it's just tripped onto that half cock notch. So I'm just going to push that forward again, the bottom of the sear, so that I can lay that flat. So you can see the angle that it's at. Now the pin is going to go in here. So you're going to put the pin in so it's not actually sticking all the way through. Now what we have to do, pop that into the hole. I normally put a bit of grease on. Now we need to press this down low enough so that pin can go across. Now you can do that with a punch. I normally put a rag over the top of it because there's a lot of pressure. I'll try it with this, but I'll show you a little trick that I've done. Be careful, because you're going to fire this into oblivion. But if you put it in the vise, it's much easier. So there, I've pressed it down, and now by pushing the pin through, I've captured the mainspring. And all we have to do now is just tap that all the way through. That's it, back together.